Well, for more on this, I'm joined in the studio now by our chief foreign editor, Rob Parsons. Hi, Rob. Tell us more about Putin's new red line. What exactly does it signify?
Well, it certainly sounds like a hardening of the Russian position. The Kommersant, one of the main Russian newspapers, says Vladimir Putin draws his red lines as its headline today. But it doesn't really make clear, and Vladimir Putin himself hasn't made very clear what the consequence would be of crossing those red lines. There was a sort of bit of a suggestion a couple of months back when Vladimir Putin had a meeting with the heads of international news agencies. So they put the question in what would happen if the West were to give long-range missiles to Ukraine. And he said that Russia would develop its air defenses to be more effective against those systems, and that it might consider giving equivalent weapons to countries around the world who could pose a potential threat to the United States or others who might be giving those weapons. I presume he had in mind countries like Iran. But it doesn't go beyond that. The use of the words going to war is what I suppose people are alarmed about, and that was clearly Vladimir Putin's intention, to scare the West into backing away from the possibility of allowing long-range weapons to fall into or to be used by the Ukrainians deep inside Russia's territory. The problem for Vladimir Putin, on the one hand, though, is that by doing this, he sort of pushes the West into agreeing to the Ukrainians having them, because otherwise it would look like they're backing down in the face of Russian threats. The other thing, too, I think people will be asking themselves, and this is really, what does he mean? Does he mean by that Russia will declare war against the West? Quite clearly not. I think it's for that reason that Donald Tusk, the Polish Prime Minister, said, look, just dismiss this. Don't pay too much attention to it. I wouldn't attach excessive importance to the latest statements from Vladimir Putin, he said. They rather show the difficult situation the Russians have on the front.
Well, Rob, meanwhile, Russia says it's recaptured a portion of territory in its western Kursk region. The Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky had earlier confirmed Moscow's troops were mounting a counter-offensive. Let's take a quick listen to Vladimir Zelensky.
The enemy has been stopped in the Kharkiv region, and their progress in the Donetsk region has been slowed down. Although it is very difficult there, the situation there is still far from positive. Nevertheless, they have withdrawn their forces in other areas.
Rob, where does Ukraine's operation in the Kursk region of Russia stand today?
Well, what Zelensky is saying is it's what Ukraine planned for. And I think what he means by that is that one of the intentions of the operation in Kursk region, was to draw off Russian troops from the Donetsk region, where the Russians are really pushing the Ukrainians very hard around towns like Chasiv Yar and Pokrovsk, and threatening to break through in places. So the idea was that this would be an operation that would relieve the pressure on Ukrainians fighting there. To that extent, when he says that it's working for us, he means that some 40,000 troops have now been sent by the Russians to Kursk region to regain territory that they've lost there against the Ukrainians. Those troops had to come from somewhere. And that's one of the reasons he's implying, is why the Russian operation in Donetsk has slowed down, why it's come to a grinding halt in Kharkiv. On the ground in Kursk itself, there's a bit of confusion about where things are. The Russians have certainly counterattacked to the west of the Ukrainian positions in the Kursk region, but these are the areas where the Ukrainians weren't particularly well dug in, and there are signs too that the Ukrainians themselves have been launching a counterattack against the counterattack. So at this stage, it's difficult to read too much into what is happening in Kursk, but certainly the Ukrainians are interpreting it as positive in the sense that the Russians have at last been forced, after some delay, to withdraw a fairly large body of their soldiers away from the front lines in Donetsk.